when you're coaching. Elicit-Provide-Elicit can be useful when the client is stuck. It can be useful when they need more information, they need some resources or advice. Maybe they're coming to you and they just don't really know where to go when it comes to something that they're talking about. I don't know. Could be they don't know where to find the information. Could be all kinds of things. It's appropriate when the coach notices the client has misinformation or may benefit from a certain resource. So if you're noticing that your patient says, well, my neighbor has decided that she has a PhD, even though she drew it with a crayon, and she said sugar is great for me and I should be eating 3 spoonfuls every meal, whatever, right? And you notice that that information is a little off. It may be a good time to Elicit-Provide-Elicit if you notice that it could be something that's not quite right. So here we're offering information, maybe even resources. That's why it's really good to stay up on your resources and your research, and your readings as a coach, so that you know what to put out there for people and help them to find information on their own. But we want to make sure that we are giving advice very sparingly. As a coach, we want them to lead themselves to the answers for the most part. But if we need to step in, sometimes that's okay. So before we use the EPE, remember the coaching basics, right? So keep it client-centered. And first, we want to ask the client how they might obtain the information on their own. If we can refer them to getting the information on their own without us having to give them the information, there seems to be some benefits because they are driven to do that. They're the ones getting that information. They're the ones finding what they need and helping themselves. And we want to assess what the client already knows. Maybe they already know a little bit about what's going on, and we don't want to overstep and try to take over that conversation. That keeps them in that client-centered focus. So when we say Elicit-Provide-Elicit, here's how it's going to go. We're going to assess the client's current understanding. So we're going to say things like, what do you already know about, I don't know, nutrition, right? What information would be helpful in this area? Those are kind of some of those open-ended questions that we would start out with. So that's elicit. And when they tell you, you want to be able to reflect what they say. So you're still using your reflections and just making sure that they get their words back. Okay. When we think about provide, there's 2 different routes. Either they have the answer or they don't necessarily have the answer. If they do have the answer, the coach can offer some information around that. If they don't have the information, the coach may be able to answer or provide some resources. Either way, we can provide something in these cases. So when you're providing information, we're going to ask permission first. Remember when we talked about mindfulness, how we want to ask permission? Do you remember why we said that?
We're being respectful.
Yeah, right. Absolutely. Being respectful and also keeping it client-centered, right? We put the ball in their court and they tell us what they're comfortable with or not comfortable with. Kind of the same thing with providing information to somebody. Is it okay if I give you some more information about? May I offer some resources that may help you? These are the things you want to ask before providing information. Again, that's just putting the ball in their court, making sure that they are the center of the conversation. If we are providing any information at all, we're going to do it in small doses. I'm talking 20, 30 seconds top. You don't want to spend much time in a coaching session offering information to them. 1, you may overwhelm them, especially if it's somebody that's new to coaching. But 2, again, thinking about that patient-centered conversation or client-centered. I use patient, client kind of interchangeably. It's whatever environment you may find yourself in. So, okay, so elicit, provide, and then we're going to end with elicit. We're going to end with a question. So once we give that information, now we can say things like, what are you taking away from that information? How might you use the information that I just gave you? What part of that was most helpful? So these are just some example questions that you can use as that ending elicit. So it's like a sandwich. Question, provide the information, question. Does that sound good to everybody so far? Not too hard. So there's the wrap up for you. That's a one slider for you to put it all on one slide. Elicit, what do you know about whatever? And you reflect their answer. Provide, may I share with you what I know? They say yes. Offer some information, again, only 20 to 30 seconds at most. And then follow up with a question. What are you taking away from that? How will this information be useful? Okay. Any questions about elicit, provide, elicit?
How do you know when to use this skill? At what point would you really want to use elicit, provide, elicit? At what stage do you realize, okay, let me just do something in this area?
Sure. Well, it could be used in just about any stage. It's not necessarily by stages, but you will find it useful if you find that your client is stuck in an idea, or they don't necessarily know what to do next. So they may be looking for something to do with nutrition, right? And they have no idea where to start. So instead of me saying, hey, how about we pull up myplate.org or whatever I want to give them resources to, instead of me just offering that up, that's a good time for me to try this EPE exercise. What do you know about nutrition? Not a lot. Do you mind if I share a resource? Absolutely. Tell me how do I get information? I give them that information about myplate.org. It's something that's free. It's out there. And then I ask them, is that something you think would be useful for you? Does that make sense?
All right. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?